you call me. Oh Jesus, you have looked into and I have abandoned my small boat. Now with you, I must seek other seas.
Good morning. It is quite customary here when we have music as gorgeous as that we applaud. So let's stop right now and do that. Welcome to worship this morning. I had this thing all planned out in my head, and all of a sudden there's a lot of people I wasn't expecting to see today, and so now you've totally messed me up. So I don't know whether I should talk longer or talk shorter or which way it would go, so I'm going to put Carter up here in charge. And he'll tell me, like that, great, you're done. All right, thank you. So our order of worship today, we're going to be kind of close to what we do, but we're going to be a little bit different. We'll do a gathering, but rather than doing it as a prayer, or sometimes we do some reflection time, today we're going to actually have a reading from the 8th Psalm. We're going to actually read the entire 8th Psalm because it's pretty short. We have a very, very short call to worship. We have 2 songs during the service today, our reading, our message, and then we will go from the message to our prayer, and from our prayer to some quick announcements, another song, and then we're going to do kind of a wrap-up thing. And so we will get everything done that way so you know what to look forward to. So, with that, let us begin. Today we have a reading again from the 8th Psalm. This is a song of David, and here it is. Lord, our Lord, your name is the most wonderful in all the earth. From the mouths of children and babes come songs of praise to you. They sing of your power to silence your enemies who are seeking revenge. I look to the heavens you made with your hands. I see the moon and the stars you created. And I wonder, why are people so important to you? Why do you even think about them? Why do you care so much about humans? Why do you even notice them? But you made them almost like gods and crowned them with glory and honor. You put them in charge of everything you made. You put everything under your control. People rule over the sheep and the cattle and all the wild animals. They rule over the birds in the sky and the fish that swim in the sea. Lord, our Lord, your name is the most wonderful name in all the earth. Let us gather today to worship. So here is a very, very quick call to worship. Your part is the second part that is bold and underlined. Here we are in a place of life, in a place that believes in things beyond time and season. Let us celebrate who we are. Whoops, I'm sorry. Should we try it again? Yeah. Here we are. You knew I'd do that once, right? Yeah. Here we are in a place of life, in a place that believes in things beyond time and season. Let us celebrate who we are and who we are yet to be. Let us be together and worship.
Everything is a season and a time to everything is time. A time to be born And the time to recognize. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to win, a time to sow, a time to love, a time to hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. Everything is a season. And the time.
That song was at my request because it fits right into the reading we have today. Up in the 60s and 70s, that was the old folk music. I think Pete Seeger gets some credit for writing that, and the band The Byrds did it. And it's been done by Joni Mitchell and a whole bunch of other people again and again and again. So it's a good one. And it fits right in again to what we're going to read. And so our reading today is from Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter. And as we're reading it, you're going to go, we just heard some of this. And indeed you did. For everything, there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. There's a time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear, and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace. What gain have the workers from their toil? I have seen the business that God has given to everyone to be busy with. He has made everything suitable for its time. Moreover, he has put a sense of past and future into their minds. Yet they cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I know that there is nothing better for them than to be happy and enjoy themselves as long as they live. That all should eat and drink and take pleasure in all their toil. Categories of this. From the song that Abby did, from the reading from the 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes, we know that there is a season for everything. And there's a time for every purpose under heaven. We're used to that word seasons. We have seasons during the year. I always start with spring, summer, fall, and winter. In a church year, we have 7 seasons, and it begins with Advent on the first part of December or the end of November, something like that. We have activities all the time. We have football season and volleyball season and wrestling season and basketball season and track season. And we've got all the other activities. There's marching band season. There's hunting season. And I'll bet I've forgotten a whole bunch of them as we go through the whole thing. But for every season, there is a time. Ecclesiastes tells us that. Every purpose under heaven. And for that, there is a time for beginnings. Do you know this church started way back in the 1880s? It is over 125 years old. This building is 55 years old. And the people that founded it and put it together, very, very few of them are with us anymore, but I could stand up here because of the history I've got here and point to where some of the people used to sit, the Horns, the Bjorks, Boneanders, the Lakes, and go on and on and on with that. So we got those things, but I remember the beginning that we had here. I remember the beginning that I had here. Paul and I moved to Larchwood, to a house right over on the highway in March of 1979. I don't think the weather was very nice that day as we moved in. Paul is nodding and she believes I'm right. So we moved in March and we weren't here very long, and we realized that we built this house, but we had to put in our own lawn. And so we started putting plans together for that, and one day this elderly man with gray hair showed up, and it turns out he was the Reverend Don Sinclair from the United Church of Christ, and wanted to know what we were doing, and he started giving me advice on putting grass in, and started talking about attending church, and then he started telling me puns, because he liked puns, and he got me there. He had me hooked at that time, because I love puns all the time. So we came in and we gave it a chance in 1979, and we've been here ever since. It's gone on like that, and that's kind of how things go. You think about the past members that have been here, and I named some of them and the pride they had and what they put in. Some of us that are the age that I'm in, and the pride that we put into what we got, and some of you that are coming through now, and how happy you are that your church exists, and when you need it, there it is. It's not so much the building, it's the people you're looking at. For everything, there is a season. There's a time for every purpose under heaven. There's a time for youth. I remember getting hooked into teaching Sunday school about the second year that we were here. That was 42 years ago. And it really didn't end until just a little while ago. And involved in it, it's kind of fun because there are people sitting here now who were in some of those Sunday school classes. Some of them that would attest to you that while they were sitting in what they believed to be a high school class that would just be an open discussion, that at the end of the day their brains hurt when they went home because they'd come in with questions and they'd leave with even more questions. The confirmation class that just ended within this last year would tell you the very same thing. It's important for those things to happen, but Sunday school is part of what we've got. It is part of what we do. It's part of the entire year of what we do with the church. We even dabbled with adult Sunday school here for a little bit and did those things. We've had active youth groups. We have yet our active club jam, which is 1st through 5th graders. It meets on Wednesdays here and still does on an ongoing basis. We've had confirmation classes go through. I was kind of thinking as I was thinking about this thing, I've been involved in 2 confirmation classes. One was back when Reverend Buffington, some of you remember him, but he was here and we had confirmation. And he had the confirmation kids on either Wednesday or Thursday night. I don't know if we made the transition yet to what it was, but it was that church night during the week. And then on Sunday morning, Paul and I would have that class. And why that hit me as I was thinking through this whole thing, it occurred that I had a generation involved in the thing, because the class that just got confirmed included Emery Cook, who's with us today, and that class way back when included her dad, Nick Cook. And so I got to be involved in an entire generation of confirmation classes. For everything there is a season, there's a time for every purpose. Under heaven, there's a time for giving. And giving is something that this church has been doing for a long time. We understand what community is. One of the greatest ministries we've got is the true food pantry that we've got in back. The people that we feed, the families that we feed, are part of the community. Not really even so much part of our church. And the support that we get from the entire community, even though we get a lot from here too, we get it from all over the place. That is an amazing ministry that we do. The amount of time and talent that people put in. Many times, you don't even know it. You show up here on a weeknight and you find somebody doing something that nobody would even know they were here. Or I drive by or I get here early on a Sunday morning and it snowed, and Lenny Grotwald showed up, and he's scooping the sidewalk 2 hours before church starts, and then he's going to go home for a while, and nobody even knew he was here to do those kind of things. We have served up at the banquet, and that's always been an interesting thing, and we've done a lot of things with mission trips. And I got to thinking about those mission trips. For the last 10 years, we've been involved in going to Missouri, but you back it up even farther than that, and I remember a group of young kids who are now well into their adulthood that went to Minneapolis and did some work in a food pantry up there. I remember taking 3 boys from here and going to St. Louis and spending 2 or 3 days working in different things and driving back, and what an experience that was. We've been in St. Louis, we've been in Denver, and everybody that went on those trips would tell you that they got more out of it than what they could ever have given people. And the thing with Blue Springs has been a real important thing too, but I think back at all the mission trips that I've been involved in, and I think the one that probably is in my memory the most is getting to spend a week on the Pine Ridge Reservation of South Dakota. Because part of that was working, and part of that was learning about culture. Man, did I learn a lot of things about the Native Americans and Lakota Sioux that I never knew before. And it was a great one to be on. So that's part of what we do too. And we still go on and on and on, because for everything there is a season, and there's a time for every purpose under heaven. That means there's a time also for worship. Now, we worship in the building, but we've also been in the park. We've been out at the lake. During COVID, we found out that we could worship in the parking lot and broadcast on an FM little transmitter that we put up. And what an adventure that was, but it really was kind of fun. Fun to the point that people in this church were asking this past summer if there's any way we could just hold a parking lot service one more time, just to see what it was like, because it was kind of fun. It was easy. You drove up, you did your thing, you left. It was very, very easy to do. And of course, part of worship is music. And I'm doing a lot of remembering right now, so stay with me on this. But I remember choir. We haven't done choir for quite a while. COVID hurt us, and time hurt us, because we had the most fun at choir. Now, Les and Bob and Nick and myself would tell you that when you came to church for the choir, it's because you wanted to hear the guys that were in the back row, and not so much the ladies up front, because they were kind of the backup singers. I think that's how I had it in my mind. Right? Right? Yeah. But it was with choir, we had so much fun. Even for a while, those 2 short little pews that some people are sitting in right now used to be up here. And it used to be part of the choir loft. And that was back in the days when the Lipperts were still members of this church. And Jill knew how to drive us to sing. And we had Carol Nielsen for a while who could drive us to sing, but you never knew what drive was till you sang for Merlin Lippert. Because you either do it right, or you do it again, and again, and again, and again, until we got it right. But it was great. It was great. Music is also involved in the kids' programs. Remember Sunday school programs, Christmas programs? Can't wait for Christmas programs. Songs and memory pieces, and stories they're going to tell. And for a little while here, we were doing children's programs outside of Christmas to just pick up little things that were going along. I think we did one on David, we did one on Light, and Jill could remember all of them. I don't remember. We had quite a few that we did. And even one time, we had the backup band, which was 2 adults and 3 high school students, and we had a bass, guitars, and a drummer. And we played with one of those 2, and my son happened to be the drummer, and he reminded me of that last weekend, that remember when we had the rock band? And it wasn't a rock band. It was good for him. You can never forget what we've attempted here, and we tried it a few more times, is we created something at Larchwood UCC we called the Guitarchestra. At one time, at worship out at the lake, we had 7 people playing guitar, and they all belonged to this church. And we had so much fun doing that, and that was a great time too. But the one I always will remember and will never walk away from is the times that I got to perform with Carla and with Heather as we sat up here and sang songs and made songs up and do things. And being part of the service was important, but what you never got to see was the rehearsal times that we did and the number of times we went through these songs and changed them again and again and again. And those two ladies will also tell you that we got it down to perfection. And then when we were playing it up here, for some reason, I decided to change things just a little bit. And I get looks from both of them, and we just adjust and keep going. I bet you never knew that as you were listening to what we were doing. It was a good time. For everything, there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. There's a time for community. For years and years and years, we did a community vacation Bible school. We would get dozens and dozens and dozens of kids from all over that would come to this thing. It was so much fun. The place was a buzz with people and how the whole thing was working. We had people from the community helping out with it too. We've been involved in a parade in Larchwood for years and years and years, because that's something that we just do. It's part of the message we want to get. It's part of the ministry that we've got. And for a number of years, and I don't know that it's ever ceased, but every presidential election, this church sponsored a little soup thing that would take place during the election. You could go vote, and you could go have some soup and sandwich and throw some money in, and we'd raise money for different things doing it that way. But it was a great way to bring community together, too. For everything, there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. And that includes involvement. And there's committees. Every church has committees. And most of you have served on just about every committee there is. I went through and looked, and I don't believe I ever got to serve on an interior committee in 42 years. But several of them I got to do multiple times as we went through the whole thing. There's other ways to serve too. Did you know that at one time, the ushers were only men? And the fellowship and the people that did coffee were only women, and the two could not do this? Didn't work. I even asked one time, why don't we have women ushers? And the response I got, because this is the one thing guys can do. I said, okay, good for me. I'll let it go with that. There's a time for everything. There's a time for fellowship. We're doing potluck today. Is there anything better? I'm going to turn to my expert. Is there anything better than church potluck? Absolutely no. There's nothing better than church potluck. Hayrides that we've gone on. We've had to have 2 weddings because we had so many people involved in it. Hayrides that we had a whole bunch of people, and we wanted to roast marshmallows, and the wind was blowing about 35 miles an hour. And so we roasted marshmallows in an oven. Never done that before, probably never will do it again. But that type of thing. There's been bowling days. There's been movie nights. We even had a book club going for a while. For everything, there is a season. There's time for every purpose under heaven. There's time for celebration. We celebrate when people come and join us, when people come and join our church. We celebrate when someone gets married. We celebrate when there's a new birth. We really celebrate when there's baptisms, because we love baptisms. And we celebrate things all the time. Big occasions, something good happens in your life, we want to celebrate it. But there's also a time for sorrow. There's a time when everybody here has lost something somewhere, and you know that members of your church stood up and helped you out. One that sticks in my mind particularly, and it's going to go back a ways in time, but a lot of years ago, and I can't even put a date on it, but some of you that are here today were part of it, because we had a tragedy happen at West Line, and we had 3 young students get killed in a plane crash. And a day or so after that, I remember getting a call from one of the youth in our church that said, can we gather at our church? So I came over and put on, I believe, some Eagles music and lit some candles, expecting about a half a dozen kids from our church, and it turned out to be kind of a community thing that got fairly big. And it was a great night, and it was very meaningful because there wasn't a lot of talking, but the talking that was done was memories, it was sharing, it was things like that. And I know a lot of you weren't here to experience that, but if you had been, I can tell you the power that was in this building at that time was absolutely amazing. That still stays with me as to what we can do. There's a time to say hello. There's a time to say goodbye. There's a time for every purpose, because in the big picture, it's all part of God's plan. Everything that happens, there's a reason for it. Sometimes we don't see that all the time, but there's a reason for it. I look at it this way. You ever taken a needlepoint, in fact, something even bigger, a tapestry, and you look at it from the front and it's beautiful. You see all the stitches in the right place, and it forms a picture, and someone put a lot of effort into it. Have you ever looked at the backside? There's string and thread and yarn everywhere, and it's a mess. It's tangled. Sometimes there's knots back there. But that's what is making the front of that picture the beautiful thing it is. It's part of the plan. It's part of what we got. Sometimes things aren't working the way that we think we're going to. Sometimes change happens, and it's a good thing, but we don't quite understand what it was. We measure life in time, days, hours, minutes, seconds. And in a way, I guess that's okay. We also measure life with getting toward, as you've been, into adulthood, you're going, my life is full, I've got everything I want. Or maybe you say my life is unfulfilled, or it's not quite where I want it to be yet. And in both cases, you're right. And in both cases, in a way, you're wrong. Because it's not that perfect set that we got all the time. For every picture on the front, there's a little bit in the back. It gives us a little bit to do about it. So maybe, rather than measuring our lives by time, maybe what we ought to do is measure it by relationships. Maybe what we ought to do is measure it by the memories that we've got or we've put together. Maybe we need to understand that it's not exactly the way we thought it was going to be, but this is where it is. I don't know if any of you or some of you can remember way back in the days when Saturday Night Live started on television. There was a comedian on there, a gal, Gilda Radner. Gilda was really out there. Gilda Radner died when she was 42 years old from cancer. And she made a statement when she knew she was going to die. And I love this statement. Let me share it with you. Gilda said, I wanted a perfect ending. But then I learned that some poems don't rhyme. And some stories don't have a clear beginning, and some stories don't have a clear ending. Life is about not knowing. Life is about having to make changes. Life is about taking that moment and making the very best of it that you can without knowing what's going to happen next. And so, for two of us, for Paula and I, it's time to come to an end. And I want to share with you how difficult this was. And difficult to the point that we had a conversation yesterday. Is this really the right thing to do? And here's why. It's because you have, on one hand, we have this marvelous opportunity to go be with family. And I can tell you there's 2 young kids in North Dakota right now that are so excited that Grandma and Grandpa from Iowa are going to be in town. And now I've got all the grandmas and grandpas in one spot. And they're already making plans. Colt and I are going out on Halloween whether I want to or not. Because that's how we're going to do it. And that's an easy decision. But we've been here for 42 years as part of you. And it's a very, very difficult thing to do. I can tell you the kids are going to win just a little bit. But even within days of us pulling out, we're still wondering, is this the right thing to do? We know it is, but is it really the right thing to do? In everything we do, there is an ending. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small, but also with every ending, there is a brand new beginning. For everything, there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. Amen. I ask you now to find yourself in a very comfortable position. Open up your mind, open up your heart. If you feel to close your eyes, you can certainly do that. We're going to enter into a time of prayer. Maybe the more appropriate thing to do is to open them up. Together, let's pray. Holy God, we are all called by you to offer our unique works and our gifts. But some of us are called to lead in very special ways. We are all called by you to speak the truths of faith. But some of us are called to preach to the community with words of compassion and love and justice. We are all called by you to comfort those who are hurt. Some of us are called to share in the pain and the suffering. Lord, you remind us that there is a time for everything. Let today be a time of love and a time of peace. Let today be a time to mend what is broken in our lives. Let today be a time to embrace our relationship with you and with each other. And let today be a time we realize our lives are in your hands. This we pray to you, and together we pray the prayer you gave us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and power, and glory forever. Amen. A couple quick things. We always remind you, and I felt that the last Sunday I was here, I needed to also promote this a little bit. We are always looking for people to help serve coffee. We're always looking for people to help clean the church. And so there are lists there. Give some thought to that, if you will. Today is potluck time, and I'm looking in back. Are there any instructions that we need to know about? Are we, do we need a delay?
We need about 10 minutes, and then there's a few tables downstairs that if people want to spread out.
Okay.
A few tables downstairs.
All right, got it. In the back, on the table that's back there, we have some cards that we had made up a while ago to let people know. So if you're curious, where are they going to? We want to keep track of this. There's our business card back there that you can grab. It's got a picture of the house. It's actually the house that we are moving into, and our phone numbers and our new address. So you can certainly grab one of those if you want to, and if we run out of those, I have more. Next week, worship with communion. It is the first Sunday in October. And Sunday school will be at 9:30, and after worship, there will be coffee. And because it's the first Sunday, that means there's rolls as well. And with that, are you ready?
Oh, Rich?
Yes.
One more little thing.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to need all of it.
Stand by your lovely husband.
I am on a roll right now. You cannot make me cry.
Okay.
All right.
We've already made you cry, so
All right.
I should have done mine at the beginning. I'm not a speaker, so I've heard Rich mention in his sermons that him and Paul have been here since 1979. In fact, you did it today. I was born in 1979 and moved here when I was 2 years old and been a member of this church ever since. So needless to say, you two have been a part of my entire church life, and many memories will stay with me, and all of us from your time here. A lot of those memories I still think of in adulthood because they were so memorable, and you were both a part of those, and I'm sure most of us can say the same thing. From youth group trips, Sunday school, Bible school, mission trips, committee times, fellowship, choir, guitar orchestra, or just worship where Paula calls Rich out on something he did wrong. Those are my favorite. Saying goodbye isn't always easy. It can be hard to find words to express what needs to be said. So I use my inner Rich. Since he often quotes songs in his sermons, as you did today, I decided to follow suit. However, him and I have very different taste in music, we found. During our time in the guitar orchestra, right, Rich?
Yes. Yeah.
Just had to get that wink in there.
Thank you.
I tried to find a song in your type of genre, but decided to stay in my own lane, which are many different kinds, but chose country and 80s. So the first one from the great Kenny Rogers. What will we do when you are gone? Who's going to tell me the truth? Who's going to finish the stories we start the way you always do? When somebody knocks at the door, someone new walks in, we will smile and shake their hands, but you can't make old friends. You can't make old friends. It was us and you since way back when, but you can't make old friends. How will I sing when you are gone? Because it won't sound the same. You'll join in those harmony parts when we call your name. You can't make old friends. It was us and you since way back when. You can't make old friends. And the other one from the great Cyndi Lauper. If you're lost and you look, and you will find us time after time. If you fall, we will catch you. We will be waiting time after time. Time after time. So your church and your church friends will always be with you here. So with that, in true UCC fashion, we send people off with a blanket. So we'd like to offer you a special gift of a blanket. So Jill, we This blanket symbolizes your church family. Wrap this blanket around you on your journey in life. There will be challenges, darkness, and maybe some cold, but the love of your church goes with you and is wrapped around you wherever you go and whatever you do. And when you have trouble remembering that or missing us, wrap yourself in this blanket and feel our love and hugs wrapping around you. Best of luck and enjoy being with your family and getting to spoil your grandkids more. We're
All right. Where did you find it?
Oh, here and there.
This is nice. This is nice.
Thank you, guys.
Announcements.
God be with you till we meet again. By His counsel's guide uphold you, with His sheep securely fold you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet, till we meet. Till we meet at Jesus' feet. Till we meet, till we meet. God be with you till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again. When life's arrows thick confound you, put His arms unfailing round you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet, till we meet, till we meet at Jesus' feet. Till we meet, till we meet.
try and find an end to what today was going to be, I want to find a quote, a reading, something that would work. Something that talked about how love is precious and friendships are forever. Love and life can be fragile, and the richer and the deeper the relationships are, the harder it is for us to part ways. So I looked at the Gospels. I looked at the great poets. I looked at the great theologians. I even looked to Dr. Seuss. I didn't find what I wanted until I found the perfect quote from the nilly-willy, silly old bear, Winnie the Pooh. How lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard. So today, we close a chapter and we say goodbye. Today, we open a brand new chapter and look forward with hope and with love. I think probably the best thing to do, I'm looking to the back again, is to everybody just stay put for a few minutes. Okay. So I know we're used to standing up, and you're allowed to stand up and walk around and say hi, but we're going to wait for just a minute for food to be ready, and we'll head that way. And so, as you leave today, I ask you to go now and do God's will as you have been blessed. Go be a blessing to others. Give comfort and receive comfort as you serve within the church and out to the world. May God be with you and guide you. May the Spirit equip you with everything good. And may you always know God's peace. Amen.